Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to fact number 32 out of 35. It's been a long journey, but my God, it has been fun. And I think it's about to get even better because our next two guests are simply two greats from British comedy who I can't believe we've got on at the same time. They're now business partners in crime with Captain Dolly, their new production company. So that's very exciting about the stuff that is going to be coming out from that company through them. So let's bring them in to discuss the next fact. It is the wonderful Sally Phillips and Ronni Ancona.
Woo!
Hey there.
Yay!
Hi guys.
Hello.
Amazing. You look unbelievably fresh and healthy.
We're ready to go for another 20 hours.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot on makeup artists.
About 100 grand, actually. Yeah.
Well, this feels great because for anyone who's just joining us now, this is the No Such Thing as a Fish podcast, and we are doing a big comic relief marathon, 35 facts with 35 guests for 35 minutes each in celebration of 35 years of comic relief. And we started this with the hope of making 35,000 to match the number. We've just hit over 100,000 in donations. Thank you so much. We're celebrating, and there's no two better people to help us in a little bit of a celebration than Ronni Ancona and Sally Phillips. So thank you for being here. And let's get to your fact. It is time for fact number 32. What have you got?
Fact number 32 is that there is a very specific and extremely rare type of mental disorder where people believe that they are cows. It's called boanthropy. It's not when other people think you're a cow. That's called getting divorced. But this is boanthropy, and the most famous sufferer of this condition was Nebuchadnezzar II, who was the emperor of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and he worked with Daniel from the book of Daniel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They were colleagues, weren't they?
They
They were colleagues, yeah. After surviving being thrown in with the lions and into a fiery furnace, they became quite close. And he had this sort of dream which Daniel interpreted, and Daniel did say that he would go mad. And he went, it says that he went and lived in the fields as a cow for 7 years and ate grass and was bathed with dew. And then it confusingly says that his hair went like that of an eagle's. So more than one animal going on, and then he suddenly returned to his rightful mind. So it was temporary. Wow. It was a temporary thing, and modern accounts, there's not that many, have also reported it as being a temporary thing. So they think it might be related to porphyria, which is a series of enzyme disorders, a neurological condition, can also be brought on by syphilis. So we're obviously particularly interested because
I'll use the enzyme excuse.
Yeah. Remarkable. Every patient we've had in this morning has been enzymes. Yeah.
I'm going to go my enzymes down.
So actresses, obviously, when you go to drama school, you have to pretend to be an animal for a year.
What?
So
sorry, I didn't know this. Yeah. What is this?
When you go to drama school, you have to get. Not that I've been. Neither of us have been actually. This is part of the reasons why. Apparently, at RADA, they send them down to London Zoo, and they have to pick and closely observe an animal for a year. Wow. And then they incorporate that into their into their acting.
Really? What would you choose, Sally? Do you think, if you had to be?
This morning, because we were coming on here, I spent the morning listening to a Therian podcast, which is people who believe that, like being transgender, they believe they're being born into the wrong species.
Oh yeah.
So I was listening to a load of American men in their 40s talking about how they were different apex predators.
Wow.
Inside, but nobody understood that. And I mean, their pain was deep, and so I feel a bit bad laughing at them, but not that bad.
Is that the equivalent of the people who are say they're reincarnated, but it's always Napoleon or it's always Joan of Arc? It's never peasant 35,000 or whatever.
It's like no one's going to pretend to be a worm, are they? Or although that would be an easy one.
It's quite quite interesting with Phoentropy, actually, because it's got a specific name for us. Not all identifications of if you want to be another animal have their specific name, and you've got to ask yourself, if you're going to identify with being a cow, you must have a bit of a death wish, because it has got advantages, copious amounts of grass and being outside and all that sort of thing. However, you are on the cusp of someone grabbing you to make a handbag out of you, or a jacket, or a burger. Whereas if you identified with being a little woodland creature, or a cat, or a dog, you could be adored and mollycoddled, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one that it is specifically. It's got its own classification.
There was weirdly a prince. Supposedly, who believed he was a cow and kept insisting that he was taken to the butcher's to be slaughtered. And he was eating only grass and hay and getting very, very thin. And eventually the villagers all got fed up with this. It's an Iraqi historian, Abdurrahman Jami, who wrote about this in his book, The Seven Thrones. And the way they healed him was by getting the butcher to come down and go, I'm not going to kill him yet because he's not fat enough. And so then he accepted eating normal food, and gradually, they say, the delusion disappeared. But I find this completely fascinating.
They have an urge to be milked? I mean...
Yeah. Well, you did that brilliant episode about Taft's cow, the famous president's cow.
Yes, he had a pet cow.
Paula Wayne.
Pauline, wasn't it? Was it Paula?
Was it Pauline? Yeah. And they asked her if she was milked against her consent.
That's right.
Yeah. Interview her. She was a proper celebrity cow, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Wait, so how did they interview? Was it actually a person who thought they were a cow?
No.
It was. I think she'd have a handler sort of alongside her to interpret her moves, but the Washington Post interviewed her. This is from 1910 to 1912. She was called Pauline Wayne. And she was Taft's cow, and you could buy souvenir milk from Pauline at a trumped up price. She was great.
Yeah, and she was near.
Zoanthropists, do you think they have got specific breeds of cows that they would identify?
I bet.
That's for the specialists. Yeah, that's when you're really into believing that you're a cow.
Well, it is. We have just been discussing on the previous section the Chillingham cattle, and I think that would be what all of us would go for. The wild cattle that no human beings are allowed to touch.
Well, who just wants to be touched by me later this year? Is that what? Because that's what we've decided.
I thought we established they could easily gore you, so I'm okay with it.
There's a craze for cow cuddling in the Netherlands.
Oh. Really?
You know about this?
It's one of the best holidays I've had.
Knuffeling.
I loved it. I wish I'd done it years ago.
Yeah, because apparently the therapeutic effects of being with a pet are magnified the larger the pet. So you pay money to go and hold a cow because their heartbeat's slightly slower than yours, and their body temperatures are a bit higher.
Interesting.
And people just lie around for hours holding.
That's lovely.
I wonder why we stuck with like little cats and dogs then. Why we didn't go for bigger pets?
Because a cow flap would probably allow.
I'm just looking at my elephant outside. I don't know what you're talking about.
And also the poo bags.
Hang it on a tree and then
I want to make a public service announcement.
Actually, my cat really identifies with being human, such a sort of sulky creature, and obviously he doesn't, but if he could, he'd just be smoking Rothmans, and it's just his paws are holding him back, lighting up, but he's just such a and there's definitely animals that identify with being humans too.
Or do we identify animals with identifying with being humans? Come on, guys, they don't know what a human is.
Very right, which is why you're doing this podcast.
I know we haven't slept, but get a grip. They don't know the word human. And also, can I just say, don't hug cows. Cows are huge and dangerous. And these Dutch people who are doing it, They've got a death wish. I don't know what they're planning at.
They're evil.
What do you mean, Rick? You've seen cows? I've been chased by so many cows in my time. They are.
That's just you.
Very nice. Very harmless.
But if it's a trend, there must be
chased by cows.
Everyone gets chased by a cow.
I've been chased by cows, and they're absolutely terrifying. They're dead behind the eyes. I said this 20 hours ago.
We did say this. We've had an earlier argument about whether cows are good or evil.
Come around full circle.
We have.
It's that weird thing about cows where they can see 358 degrees, but they can't see straight in front of them. They can see all the way around the circle except for in front of them.
That's so good.
Like this terrible evolutionary.
That's fantastic. They've got pure periphery vision, but nothing else. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if cow's driving, his blind spot is literally in front of him.
They're driving. I don't sense that any of you lot are very keen on cows.
I love cows.
I like them, but I've never been in the countryside much, so I like them in a very conceptual way.
I find them really scary.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have the respect for them that they deserve and demand.
They don't demand much respect, do they?
They're very demanding.
What job they've got, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's what position they've got.
Queen cow in the field next door is, no, I curtsy to her every time I go past.
Are you confusing cows with bees again?
The cow hive's a pretty big, scary place.
It's bigger than my house, my cow hive.
Anna,
you're so unbelievably clever, all of you. You must know what is the phrase for people who have a fear of cows. I don't know, but there must be.
There must be like bovophobia.
For anybody who's got a phobia about anything.
It's bovophobia, bovinophobia. Yeah, I googled that, but tried to look like I didn't. So
I think we all heard you typing away there.
I had both my hands. Sorry, Sally.
What was weird about this, because obviously we didn't know anything about Phoentropy until, because when you asked me what to do, I wanted to do feral children, then I was told it was too dark. So then I put Phoentropy, and I've been googling it for the past like half an hour at least. But what's weird is that it's lycanthropy, which is where believing you're a werewolf, believing you're a wolf, also includes cows.
Oh, does it?
So they've got very confused with their terms. Seems like the zoanthropy, which is believing you're an animal, lycanthropy.
Never a cow.
Yeah, or is there? Is there? Maybe we've been looking. Maybe all these.
They go crazy when the moon. I can't believe I've literally
love it.
You're literally milking it.
Talent of mine.
Wow. Does Remember You're a Womble fit anywhere into this spectrum of psychological disorders? You know,
what do you mean?
Remember You're a Womble. That's the song, isn't it? You believe you're a cow. You believe you're a wolf. You remember you're a Womble.
Ronnie is actually Madame Chalet.
I love Madame Chalet. I love, considering I've got so many different ages floating around, I'm not quite sure how old I am now. And that's probably highly incriminating to confess how much I know about Madame Chalet, but wasn't she the best ever?
Who's I don't know who.
Yeah, she was the chef. She was the Womble chef.
Oh, I never saw that show. I was not in the country.
No, Ronnie's an amazing chef.
Not, but God bless you for saying.
She's got a floral apron and everything.
Friends, we sort of like.
You lie about each other publicly. It's a good company. So wait, Andy, you must be familiar with it, or do you just know the theme tune to the Wombles, but then you'd always turn it off when the episode started?
Well, I agree, like the Archers, as we've ascertained earlier on, is what I do. I'm not very familiar with the Wombles. I know a bit because I grew up.
I think they're remaking the Wombles.
Are they?
I have a feeling the Wombles are coming back, and they're going to use the Wombles to promote recycling and greenish.
I'm going to get to my agent if you just 1 second.
Andy, did you just say that you're familiar with it because you grew up in Wimbledon?
Yeah.
Okay, where they're from, of course.
Where they're from?
So, yeah.
They are.
You support
No, it's true.
the Wombles.
I'm just saying. if you grow up in or near Wimbledon, you're more aware of the Wombles than if you grow up in the West Country, for example. They're just there, like background radiation, which is what you get in the West Country, actually. So.
That's true. I once met a guy who pretended to be a goat.
We've gone off air. I can tell you now.
Oh, we've gone off air. Yeah, let's pause. All right.
Are we back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you once met a guy.
I once met a guy who pretended to be a goat. He is a really nice bloke. He's called Thomas Thwaites. And he said he was walking with his dog one day and he just noticed that his dog just seemed really happy. And he thought, wouldn't it be great to just be an animal and get rid of all the problems that being a human entails and just be an animal? So he tried to work out what to be. He considered being an elephant, a few other things, but eventually decided to be a goat. And he got an exoskeleton built so he could be living on all fours. He went to Switzerland, I think it was, and lived in a field with a load of other goats. He chewed up, what he wanted to do was chew up grass and then spit it into a bag with a load of enzymes in it. And then that would turn it into something he could eat. And then he would drink it like a milkshake. But his doctor said he shouldn't do that. And in the end, he would chew up the grass and spit it into a pressure cooker and cook it in the pressure cooker and then eat what came out. But he just lived as a goat for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
that long because he claimed he was accepted by the herd, didn't he?
Option all of a sudden, doesn't it? I mean, that's extraordinary. He was trying to properly ruminate then. I mean,
yeah, he was trying to be as much like a goat as he possibly could be.
Wow!
And like Hannah said, he was accepted.
He was accepted by the community, by goat number 18, apparently. Goat number 18 took a particular liking to him, and I think showed him to the best grass or whatever. Didn't he write a book about it?
He did, yeah. Goat Man, I think it was called, or something like that. It's going to be, There was the other guy we spoke about on the podcast not too long ago called Charles Foster, who decided to live as different wild beasts in the UK. So he wanted to work out what it would be like to live as a badger or to live as an otter. And he would bring his kids into doing it with him and his wife. And so he would dig a set for him and his son to live in and sleep in and forage at night, and they would do that for weeks on end. And he did one thing where he got his family members with him to live as otters and try and mimic all the things that otters do. One thing that they do is scat sniffing. And scat sniffing is where when you're smelling the poo, you're able to identify whose poo that is and what, all the information that comes out of it. By the end of this trip of living as an otter with his family, he said that each member of their family could smell each other's poo when the other person was around and go, "That's Dad. That's my brother." So they could identify each other, by their feces.
Well, that's a delightful family activity. Because I'm so fed up with Uno. Exploding kittens.
You need Uno.
Something for the kids. I've run out of everything. I can't think of anything.
It is good. It helps that moment. I live in a house with 5 people, and when you go into the bathroom and immediately go out and go, "Come on, who did that?" And no one holds their hands up. You don't need to ask anymore.
Amazing. When NASA released the transcripts because there's a delay on them releasing them, isn't there? They released the transcripts, and I can't remember when they're from, these particular ones, but there's a whole load of NASA transcripts of escaped poo and all these astronauts in zero gravity. These this poos flying around and astronauts going, "Well, that ain't mine." It's kind of greasy.
One way of leaving your legacy, isn't it? Around. Yeah. You're not one of the astronauts that actually gets to walk on a planet. You just put a big one out. Right, okay.
Apollo 11, this ain't.
Ground control. If we're not going to do that, I'm going to lay a big one floating around for it.
Well, that's one of probably the most important things that we've done as mankind, which is we have left bags of poo. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and the other astronauts have left their poo on the moon. And we've basically seeded the universe with life now, because that poo is going to have bacteria that remains. And if aliens come and pass, they can collect that poo and tell everything about, we could be...
Whoa, Dan, if you're an alien going past, why are you going to collect the poo?
Well, it's in a bag.
Because you're a good neighbour. Because you're a responsible member.
On the moon on purpose.
Well, I think they needed to leave lots of waste on the moon.
They said they were going to pick it up on the way back, and then it's still hanging on a tree.
The moon tree.
If you're an alien, you'd be passing and you go, "Oh, they've left us a gift. Leave us the present. Flowers, chocolates. Oh no, it's."
On their planet, it could be really valuable, like for to grow plants or stuff.
Dan, could they theoretically grow a new Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin from that?
They can't grow.
I said theoretically. Theoretically. Extremely theoretically.
They're more likely to be able to grow whatever that Neil Armstrong ate. Like, chicken sandwich or something.
If Neil Armstrong had eaten Buzz Aldrin on the moon and then done poo, they might be able to regenerate Buzz Aldrin. I guess that's what you're saying.
I guess so.
But I don't think he did, because Buzz Aldrin went on to live a long and happy life.
Here's my son joining in.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello. Broadcasting to the nation.
Hello. How are you?
I'm well.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
What's your favourite animal, Ollie? Pizza.
Mine too, definitely.
That's a fine choice.
Weekends are all about this. I'm actually doing a podcast right now. Oh, okay. So could you go and have breakfast and get dressed? Sure. I already had breakfast. Okay, go and get dressed then. Okay. Come on, Chelsea!
Now,
all right.
He cut his hair to look like a footballer.
Right.
He's nailing it.
That was a great last second. Come on, Chelsea. Came out of nowhere.
No one else in the family supports Chelsea.
Right.
It's just it came out of nowhere.
Really? Funny.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you think there are humans?
Do you think he thinks he's a Chelsea supporter, but it's actually, he'll come to his senses soon and support the family team?
Yeah.
It's just temporary. What does the rest of the family support?
My ex-husband supports Liverpool, so I support Everton.
I think he's got Chelsea Anthropy, hasn't he?
As possible. It's away from Liverpool.
Yeah.
Sally. Oh, sorry. Go on, Ronnie.
No. You go, James.
I was just going to say about pretending to be cows. I read on your Wikipedia, Sally, and I don't know if this is true, so apologies if it's not. But did you feature in Eddie Izzard's sitcom Cows, pretending to be a cow?
Yes, I did. Now that was
sounds amazing.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think that I file it. I mean, it was a famous disaster, but you file it under definitely worth a shot. Eddie Izzard wrote a sitcom. It was a bit sort of quite Larson-esque. That was about a family of cows, and in retrospect, it was perhaps a bit dodgy because it basically took women's suffrage and just changed women for cows. So
you can see what he's done there.
You can see what he's done there. He had a cow throwing itself. There was a passage at the beginning where a cow threw itself in front of the king's horse. Cows suddenly stood up on their hind legs and chained themselves to buildings and things.
Okay.
And the idea was that this was but human cow intermarriage was still slightly frowned upon. And there was this amazing cast: James Fleet and Pam Ferris, Nicola Walker, Kevin Eldon, Jonathan Cake. And they were all cows, but unfortunately the prosthetics wasn't really up to it. So they put these, it was incredibly uncomfortable for them. I was the love interest. I was a non-cow, but I would have looked better with a latex hair. I was quite young. I had very bad hair after a sun-in fight. But they put these big latex masks on people, and they had a lot of machinery to try and make. No, they didn't have machinery. They had to do massive movements to make this latex head even slightly shimmer. Huh. So you had these amazing actors, and then you covered up the thing that made them amazing actors, which their faces.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really hear what they were saying, and they were working like crazy and sweating a lot. And it didn't really work. The script was really funny. It would have been a brilliant animation.
I can't believe we've got this far into this section. You've only just admitted that you have indeed lived like a cow.
Yeah.
I would have thought you would have
the
opened with that.
I was the human.
Oh, you were the human.
I was Jonathan
really?
Cake.
It clearly left
And
a
so
mark.
the
though.
cow family disapproved of me and thought I was awful, and my family disapproved of them
Okay.
and thought they were awful. So I was saved the big face.
It is weird. I wonder why are cows particularly popular? Because there have been various documentaries on people who think they're other animals, which are much more exciting. Like, well, wolves seem to be a classic. A leopard. I think there was a documentary about someone who believed they were a leopard called Shroud. And
Cool name.
said, I think said, on all levels, I am a leopard except physical. And so why would you go for cow?
Well, I think
No.
cow is
I
more.
wonder if you become identify with being a cow or not. Do you just become pure cow, or do you take any of your own characteristics over? Like if you were into cycling, would you become yellow Jersey cow? Again, I brought the two down.
Oh no, brilliant.
Really?
Like I said,
love it, I love it.
I was listening to this Therian podcast, and it was just people insisting they were these other animals, and also saying that it was very, very offensive if anyone pointed out that they weren't the animal.
Right.
So here's how to talk to a Therian. Do not say at any point, you are not a leopard.
Right.
Well, unless they think they're a bird.
And-
They go to shifts. Tell them about the shifts. Tell the people who know everything.
We found
know everything. Why don't we educate them?
they just seem to be quite indecisive. We came across this guy yesterday, Ronni and I, who who said he was a Therian, so he believes he's an animal and a vampire, and so he couldn't pick there. And then his Therian animals were a leopard and a raven.
Oh, you would have thought a bat. would
Yeah,
make
vampire
sense.
bat. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
No, he likes to defy expectation.
Wow.
You can't pick the two best animals. The coolest animal, the leopard, the smartest animal, the raven, and hog both. That is bullshit.
I think you get a good, you get a really exotic animal, and then you have to concede and go with a hamster or something.
Yeah.
You can't sort of go, oh yeah, eagle and lion, or
Yeah,
one. You have to go from the spectrum.
definitely. Strict point system where eagle costs 500 points and slug costs 2, but you only get 502 points. That's up to you how you distribute them. You could be 2 dogs. What would be the point?
Could you be like 300
Barking
slugs?
impression, actually. I actually did a radio show once. This sounds forever, and the sound engineer didn't have with him the dogs, and it was about Andy Warhol diaries or something. And I said, I'll read in for the dogs until you get the tape. And they took it back, and he listened to I don't know if this is a compliment or a deep insult. I still can't work this out. But they went back and they listened to the real dogs on tape, and I got the job. They thought, we'll keep her. That's one of my career highlights, especially lately.
You're a more realistic dog than an actual dog.
Yeah, I've thought about it. It is a nonsense.
There was this. I'm sure you guys know about that. There were these huge werewolf trials in the 16th century, weren't there? It was like
I don't know
it was
about
like
that.
this
Wow.
mania that swept Europe. A bit like the witch trials, but people were, killed for being werewolves, and they confessed to it. And there was also a whole load of werewolf crimes. So it's like this sort of collective.
Gosh.
And they weren't being sort of the literal scapegoats. It wasn't like you blamed crimes on a mystical werewolf. It was actually people who were accused of being werewolves and accused of crimes.
Who did do the crimes, I think.
Who did the
Who
crimes.
did kill.
Oh.
Didn't know about that.
Kill and eat children. They killed locals. There's a guy, Peter Stibb. Have you heard of him? Yeah, I mean, people who, I suppose, cannibalism of some kind. And, there was
presumably this was all a mass delusion or hysteria or some
think
kind
it was
of
a mass
religious insanity.
delusion, yeah, a response to Maybe a response to actions of the church, she says, as a wild guess. Quite what the actions of the church were at that time that would have brought this about, I'm not sure.
Another couple of ideas for family activities. I'm just writing this down. Who's sniffing? And identifying with various werewolves.
If anyone wants to buy a pack of Uno, then we've got one coming.
I think there was once a People's Crusade, and I can't remember when in the Middle Ages it was, but it was a real, a huge religious sort of mania that swept across the land. But the leaders of it were a goose that had performed some miracles and a nanny goat which was possessed by the Holy Spirit. And I have no idea how these two animals got their roles as being in charge of the entire crusade. It sounds quite stressful, actually.
And they just kind of followed them where they went, didn't they, for a little while, I think. Yeah.
I mean, we laugh. We had Paul, the World Cup.
We did.
Yeah.
God, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so was that just a joke, I wonder? Will people look back on Paul and think that we genuinely believe that this octopus could predict the results of the World Cup or whatever, do you think? And think we're all completely insane? And is it the case, were they actually following a goose? Or did they just have a pet goose and they claimed that for a laugh?
Yeah,
I bet it's that. They did used to put a lot of animals on trial, didn't they? That was quite common, I think. Lots of rats went on trial in Paris in the 1300s, but I think then they often didn't turn up to court. And so then they had to be punished in absentia, and then they told them not to do it again. But
they're very bad PR, aren't they? They're poor rats. I mean, they do get a bad.
They get a bad rat.
They get a bad rat.
Yeah, I think the problem was that you couldn't just go and kill rats, right? You had to get permission from the church or something. And so to get that permission, you had to put them on trial. And then when they didn't turn up,
you couldn't just kill a rat?
No, they were like God's creatures.
Plague era? Is this why the plague was a problem?
Yeah,
I mean, good point.
You could just kill a rat, but you couldn't do an organized, everyone in the city goes out and kills rats unless you'd kind of excommunicated them because they were God's creatures. And so you put them on trial, and then when they never turned up, you'd say, well, you're guilty then, and then you would be allowed to get rid of the animals. Wouldn't always be rats, it might be other pests.
By that time, they were on a private jet. They were in a getaway car by that time.
Yeah.
No, don't let the cow drive.
Oh, I have a fact about cows in Australia. This is a really good one. There was a huge problem in Australia in the early 50s because cow poo hung around for ages and ages on farms. And there was a Hungarian entomologist called George Bornemisza who realized that cattle were new to Australia. They were only introduced in the 1880s. And so the dung beetles in Australia were not adapted to cow poo, to cow pats, which are very different to marsupial. Kangaroo poo, wombat poo is much kind of drier because there's less water, so it's dry, harder kind of pellets. So the dung beetles just couldn't cope, basically. And so Bornemisza, this entomologist, he introduced 50 different species of foreign dung beetle. It took him 20 years. The next 20 years of his life he spent introducing foreign dung beetles to Australia.
Back to England, getting a beetle. Back to England.
Had to buy a ticket for each one.
Some of them didn't
Visa
travel well.
application. Australia, a nightmare.
Another dung beetle, yeah. But it worked. It genuinely worked, and that solved the problem.
Wow, that sort of thing never
It's a
worked.
happy story. I know. I'm sure there are unintended consequences which are coming almost immediately, Anna. I'm sure it won't. Yeah.
It's always Australia as well, poor Australia, because it doesn't have any of our animals, the rest of the world's animals, until a very short time ago, did it? And so, what is it? We've had to start dropping toad-flavoured sausages that taste like cane toads, and then make animals vomit to put them off eating actual cane toads, which will kill them. And so they've been airdropping toad-flavoured sausages.
Okay, am I in a dream?
Maybe.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, we go to all sorts of lengths to try and cover up our mistakes as human beings.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Isn't the sorry, I was just dealing with some technical stuff, so I have no idea what the hell you guys were talking about for the last 10 minutes, but I'll assume that what I'm about to add is relevant. New Zealand, there was the kakapo parrot, which basically it lost all of its land predators, and so it no longer needed to fly. So it sort of evolved out of the ability to fly as well, but something in their head didn't tell them that they could no longer fly. So they would still climb up trees, jump off, assuming the wings were going to kick in and plunge to their death. Really sad, right? And Douglas Adams wrote about them in Last Chance to See. There was another problem, which is that the mating call of the male kakapo was very bassy. And unfortunately, because it was like the bass of a sound system, it means that, wherever you place that in a room, it's kind of surround. You can't tell where it's coming from. So it would be making its mating call, and the female kakapo would go, well, where the fuck are you? Because it was just, I have no idea. It's all around me. So it's a species that's kind of been on the brink of extinction for a long time now. And there's been many ways to try and get them to mate with each other and survive. And the latest one was they hired a saxophonist to play sexy tunes to the kakapo. This was an official New Zealand. Hi.
Hello.
Oh no, he's not live. He's not live with us.
That is so clever what you did.
There was a behind the scenes thing.
You just turned into John Lloyd.
Yeah. People watching on the output on their YouTube can't see what actually happened, but Sally just turned into John Lloyd.
Yeah. Maybe she thought she was John Lloyd for a second, so convincingly.
Yeah. She had John Lloyd entropy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. So we're desperately trying to save them with any method possible at the moment. The latest being sexy saxophones.
It doesn't feel likely, does it? That if nothing else has worked, it's going to happen that they get really turned on by sort of 1930s jazz. My hopes aren't high for the kakapo.
That's very defeatist of you, Anna.
I give up on it. I think they claim they use their wings to break their fall now. I think that's they've got wings that sort of like squash underneath them, so when they take big jumps from trees, the wings break their fall. But it does sound like the excuse of a bird that's embarrassed that
it's just
on
purpose. How did they ascertain that jazz was their favourite musical genre? These birds, they sound like they're more like Leonard Cohen birds. They're so depressed.
Yeah.
That's true.
Get a bit of So Long Marianne on for them.
We're gonna have to wrap up in a second with you both. It's been so fun having you. Thank you so much for doing this. And we've actually raised a bunch of money while you've been on here, despite not even mentioning.
Stop us talking.
Look at all the kick-ass puns that have done it, Ronnie. We love you. There's one thing you should know about our show. Puns are our favorite thing in the world, and you delivered gold. Thank you to everyone who's continuing to donate. So we're now sitting at 104,000.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. To Claire Oatley, who's given £20, to Charlotte, to Andrea and Scott, Tamsin, Kevin Guy, all the anonymous donors who keep pumping money in. Thank you so much, everyone. This is so cool. Thank you, Ronnie, and thank you, Sally. We loved having you on just now. This was so fun. And we hopefully will see you in real life sometime soon. And we're going to go to a break. So we'll be back in a few minutes with our next guest. We'll see you then.
Hello, everybody. That was fun, wasn't it? Well, now you have to pay. Please go to comicrelief.com/fish and give us all of your money so that it can be spent on fabulous causes around the world. There are many more videos where these came from, so bring all of your money and give it to us. Link is below. Click on the link.